It's episode 55 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Dan Attfield.
Hello!
Hello!
How's it going?
It's going well. How's it going for you?
Yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah.
We're already off to a giddy start. I love it.
We were chatting quite normally. And now I've started recording, I've suddenly got the giggles. You would have thought 55 episodes in that I might have conquered this particular aspect of the recording thing.
No, nailing it. 10 out of 10. Would do that start again in a heartbeat.
No, let's power through. Anyway, right. Okay, brilliant. So, you're a man that does lots of things.
So many, almost too many things,
Do you
I
think
think.
too many?
Yeah. In fact, I had my appraisal at my sort of regular, normal person day job today, and it was essentially going, how do you balance the comedy, improv side of things with making money and being able to afford your rent, and so that was an interesting chat that I had today with a very serious man.
What was the answer to that?
The answer was I'm focusing more on the comedy and improv side than I am on the regular day person thing, and they're fine with that, which is nice. It's a lovely situation to be in, but still trying to find that equilibrium of I don't have to just eat bread,
Yes,
compared to I don't have time to do any of the cool stuff with improv and comedy that I want to do. So yeah, very much on my mind at the moment.
Yes.
There are many things, but I wouldn't give any of them up because there's a lot of really fun stuff going on, particularly in London, but all over the place, that I'm delighted to be part of. So
cool. Right, well, what should we start with first? What would you like to talk about first?
That's a great question. I mean, it's the Improv London podcast. Let's start improv.
Yes.
I mean, improv in London was 7 years ago, I think I moved. 7 years in July, I think I'll be here. I remember moving down going, this is a really great opportunity to get involved with a burgeoning scene at the time. So I think Steve Rowe from Hoopla had just moved into the Miller. I think at that point it's 2010. And so I remember going to my first workshop, which would have been at, I think it's called Agent Orange in Clapham Junction, if you've ever been there. No. So on Clapham, it's not even Clapham High Street, it's just you come up to Clapham Junction Station, you turn right towards the bridge, and it's this lovely little sort of rock pub downstairs where they've got the table foosball, moved everything out of the way. I remember having my first session with Edgar and Steve and just going, oh, this is what London Improv is like, and it's Wednesday and I'm doing improv, and I could have any night of the week there's something on, but it was still burgeoning. We're trying to find a venue to put on performances and stuff, so I remember being super excited that places like the Miller were about to be a thing. And even then I think that was just 1 day a week, only on a Tuesday at that point, which was really, really lovely. London Improv has really changed like how I see myself, and loads of really important parts of my life. So that's where I am at the moment, is 7 years into London Improv and loving every minute of it. So,
cool. How has improv changed the way you see yourself?
That's
these are the big questions.
These are the big straight away.
But you set yourself up for that.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's the big empathy question. For me, it's empathy, it's trust, and it's listening. I think those things straight away make you just a better human being as well as a better improviser. And I think if you can, I think improvisers do this naturally anyway. The more you are tuned into other people, the more you're trying to figure out, okay, how can we make any scenario work to our mutual benefit? That helps you in other areas that are not on stage.
Yes.
So being able to do that kind of thing at work, diffusing tough situations, building trust with people that you maybe wouldn't necessarily just give a load of trust to. An improviser naturally goes, yeah, all right, let's do this, and let's go and build a cool relationship off the top of that. And it certainly helps in a lot of my work relationships, friendships. I think I'm I'm still not a great friend, but I'm an okay friend. Like, I'm getting better at it. And communication skills, like most of all, is like, do more listening than talking, which you're obviously excellent at right now. I'm doing all the talking, and I feel bad about that. But,
do not feel bad about that, because I'm on every episode of this podcast, more or less. So I'm more than happy if I sit here and the guest just talks, and then I can go, brilliant, done.
Happy days.
Happy listening. Should we talk about the RH experience?
Yeah.
What are they about?
So the RH experience
what's your thing about them?
They're a bunch of legends, is how I describe them. Really lovely guys. I met them. How long was it now? I think it was a couple of years into moving to London. But I met them at another Hoopla drop-in workshop. This was, I think this was Balham. It wasn't at the Bedford. It was, I think it's St Mary's Church just around the corner. And it was another one run by Steve. And these three guys came in, and it was like, oh, hello, something's going on. Like they clearly have an energy about them. So I met Connor Jatta, Luke Spillane and Tom Webster. They came in and it was just like, oh, cool, I think we might have a vibe. And on that particular occasion, we didn't even meet. So I just saw them and went, they're pretty cool, that's really nice. And then saw them do various bits. They were already doing live shows in London. They had their sort of burgeoning RH and Friends night on, which seemed pretty cool. So I remember going that a couple of times. At the time, I was working with Do Not Adjust Your Stage. So back in 2010, I was one of the founding members with Nick Oram, Reese Collier, Amy Bailey, who's now off doing crazy things like, I think it's Vikings, her show on like Sky Atlantic or something like that. She's doing incredible stuff. Tim Grucock, Luke Courtney Smith, who I'm not sure is doing much stuff around London anymore. And then the rest of the Sheffield lot came down, so people like Sean Lothian and Helen O'Donnell and all those kind of folks came in a little bit later on. But I remember being at that at the time, and I remember doing a show with the RH Experience, and essentially they stole me from doing Not Just for Stage. At the time, I was having a similar sort of thing where I'm doing too much. I had a completely different job, and I kind of went, well, I want to focus on a particular project. Do Not Just for Stage were doing very well. It was exactly my kind of vibe. There was something though, there's some sort of spark that I felt with the RH boys that made it sort of almost inevitable that something was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I remember joining them and just having a lot of fun. It was like I joined a friendship 10 years in and we'd already got all the in-jokes. You get initiated into what the RH stands for, which will not come out on this podcast, I'm afraid. You have to be initiated over time. And then being able to do all of the cool improv things melded with a load of the YouTube stuff. So the guys have been doing YouTube videos for years, usually sketches, lots of improvised type sketches, but a lot of pre-written stuff. Like Connor and Tom particularly are excellent writers. And so they've been working on that kind of stuff for ages. I was like, cool, I want to get involved in that lovely Venn diagram of online type stuff and improv, and just have had the best, now 4 years, maybe 5, that we've been doing stuff either on the stage together or on video together, and just putting fun stuff out there. It's just it feels like a good warm, it's friends first. And then sort of comedy and improv comes out of that naturally. It's very organic. And it's I think they're the only ones, I say we're the only ones, but I still feel like a little bit of an outsider in a way, in that the RH Experience is very much Connor, Luke and Tom. Like, they are the hub, and I've kind of sort of joined in as, I can also. They would never say that. They'd be like, come on guys, it's all of us. But still very much the energy is those three guys who are so different in their styles, their techniques, their interests even, but together they're this powerhouse of really great fun. So that's been a big focus for the last 4 or 5 years, and has opened a lot of other doors as well, which has been really lovely. So can't speak highly enough for the boys.
Very nice, very nice. And what's your role in that group? What did you bring that they didn't have before, or how did you change it?
So one of the big things that I've always been interested in is music. So at university, my intro to improv was the Durham University Improvised Comedy Society. So people like Reese Collier is also was a part of that when he graduated. I think we missed each other by a year. I graduated when he started at Durham, and I remember having the best time doing. I think I essentially joined because I thought it was a stand-up society. I thought I was going to learn how to be funny. And weirdly enough, we just played. I think like a lot of people, I remember Molly speaking about like the first improv stuff. She did a very short form, very sort of whose lines anyway. It's the gateway drug. It gets everyone like, I can do this thing, and it's really fun. And I remember it being a lot of fun, but I remember like some of the shows we did were awful. Like genuinely awful, like proper, like steamrolling each other. We had a lot of fun formats. I remember a particular summer we had something called the Bucket of Death tour, and we went around Durham's collegiate, so you would go to different colleges and do like a little tour of the colleges. And we had this Bucket of Death show where the game is there's a big bucket of water. It's our sort of finale party piece where one improviser has to have their head in a bucket of water the entire time, and they can only come out of it and continue a scene when someone tags them out. So it's essentially you have to do these really fast scenes to stop your teammates drowning.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Which was awful, but there's that element of danger. That sort of like I can't remember who did the mousetraps one. I seem to remember. It's that sort of vibe. But I remember doing that and loving it. And then I remember moving down to London. I was up in the north for a little while. There wasn't a lot in Leeds where I was living at the time, sadly. But I remember moving down to London, 2010, and going, there's so much here. It was pretty much hoopla. I'm not sure David was here with David Shaw with Monkey Toast at the time. But yeah, I remember going, hoopla, great, I'm going to get stuck in and do everything I can. But yeah, so it's mainly been music is what I was actually talking about. And so I remember I was in a musical comedy duo called the Rasputins back at university, which was a lot of fun. One of the guys I used to go to university with, a guy called Ed Baxter, he introduced me actually to the Improv Comedy Society as well. And so we would do initially we were a serious covers band. Like we used to do like little covers, we'd do our own little songs. And then we started we used to do covers of our favourite comedy songs. So we did tribute to Tenacious D stuff, Corky and the Juice Pigs, the Only Gay Eskimo song, and bits and pieces like that. And I remember going, this is fun, but like these aren't our songs. Like I want to do our own stuff. So we started writing our own songs, and when we started doing this ended up how I met people like Nick Oram and people from Sheffield, because they came up to see Durham Improv. They, I think, thought it was fine, but then they came to see me and Ed do a sort of musical comedy thing where we did some improv as well. We were big blues fans. We do an improvised blues during every set, and they were like, "Cool, you should come down and close our graduation show in Sheffield." Wow! So we came down and we played with them, which was great. I remember learning a lot from. They had an incredible director called Dimitri Muna, who I saw not so long ago. Actually, he came over, and he was from already doing a postdoc in astrophysics. Wow. Incredible improviser, incredible director of improv as well. And so he'd studied with various schools over there and had basically gone, "There's no improv in Sheffield. Let's do this thing." So I remember meeting Nick Oram, Sean Lothian, Helen O'Donnell, and all those cool kids, and then they had a director and everything. Wow. Like, it was super great. So it was the music that got me into improv. It was music that got me introduced to sort of the first groups that were doing it more seriously. And then when I moved to London, I found that anyone who was interested in the sort of stuff I'd done before was like, "Oh, I heard you play guitar." And then that's where you kind of almost inevitably get pigeonholed. And I'm not saying that in a bad way at all. I've actually really enjoyed like being like that guy. So if you need someone who's playing guitar and does the listening, can react, understands improv, but can also have like can provide music for you. So the long way around of that is that's why I'm doing in the Irish Experience. They saw me do stuff with Do Not Adjust Your Stage. My role in Do Not Adjust Your Stage was I'd sing a few songs, I'd set up a few. It was all very TV based at the time, so it was a play on Do Not Adjust Your Set from Monty Python. So it was very much me doing either the theme songs for TV shows, little stings for adverts, or like full-blown songs on like a music channel or whatever it was for particular channels. And I remember seeing the RH going, yes, let's have some fun with that. So lots of music, lots of different genres, lots of different styles, but always with the idea of it's improv first. I think Duncan Walsh-Atkins was saying in his episode recently, it was you need an improvised, either a musician or an accompanist or a whole band to be looking always at time. They need to understand improv, they need to know where the beats are, they need to know where the emotion is coming from, they need to know what the relationship is, they need to spot the changes, they need to identify whatever tilt is going on in the scene and be able to react to that as a musician. And that's something that I've really tried to develop, like as my little niche. That I really enjoy and really love. So that's what I'm doing with the RH, and that's what I've been doing really since I moved to London with the whole musical / improv combo.
Yes, because I was going to ask if we were trying to get more people to play music to accompany improvisers, how should they do it? And then you just sort of explain that.
Yeah, I think there's this lovely mix of people who are excellent improvisers and maybe slightly less confident with instruments, which is a little bit of a shame, because I think when you get that confidence with improv, I think just grab that ukulele, piano. You don't get a lot of woodwind or brass improv musicians, which I think is a shame.
Yeah, I'm just slightly visualising that in my mind. Yes, no, that's a strange and wonderful fever dream.
But yeah, I mean, even if you've got like the basics of I can play a chord on a ukulele, there's someone else who's going to be able to go, yeah, okay. And even just the tiniest little bit of something underneath the scene, it doesn't have to be actually pushing a song or like making people sing on stage. It can just be scoring for a scene that turns it from a regular scene into something that actually feels a bit more full, a bit more theatrical, a little bit more, sometimes like cinematic in some cases.
Yes, I love those little production touches that just sort of lift the scene and sort of take it somewhere else, because much as I love improv, a lot of the scenes, especially if you watch a lot of it, a lot of the scenes can seem inevitably sort of become a little bit samey, but if you can just have a little bit of production, as you say, it's not doing much, but it just takes it somewhere else.
Absolutely. I think that production element as well, I mean, that's one of the things that the RH boys, particularly Connor, like he's coming up with so many different creative ideas. I won't spoil loads of them now because I think you should get him on and have a chat with him. But a lot of the shows that we've done with the RH experience have come out of Connor's ideas particularly. So we took a show up in 2014 to the Edinburgh Fringe called Stuck, which was one of my favourite formats, where we already knew ahead of time that there would be 3 characters. We would do little 3-line scenes to introduce those characters, and then they would get stuck somewhere. By the end of the 45 minutes, hour-long show, they would have either escaped or died, or something would have happened anyway to make it like a good resolution. That happened, and then I remember sort of kind of going, well, we've got all these really talented friends from YouTube, from the improv community, how can we do more with that? So I remember doing more musical stuff, and then we've got Ed Stockham at the moment is our in-house animator and artist. So he works, he's a great YouTube guy, an incredible illustrator. He currently works for the Beano, which is one of my sort of childhood jealousy sort of things happening right there. Like, he works for the Beano, which is very, very cool. And we get him along, and we have an overhead projector in our current show, Scribble. Wow. So the classic 1980s classroom type vibe, and he's got acetate, and we get a load of suggestions from the audience in advance that we don't see, and Ed draws them all before the show, and then our who, what, where. So our where is always defined by what Ed is putting on the OHP.
Oh wow!
Which it's very lo-fi. There's not it's not sort of crazy, like sort of snazzy type sort of flash. But there is that production value attached to it that makes it go, oh, this is something a little bit special. Yes. And you can just be, like, I've seen some lovely scenes with the RH boys with these things in mind, where you've got the backdrop, you've got music going on, and the improvisers can then breathe. They can take their time. They can live in that space for a little bit without it feeling weird to the audience. Like, obviously, we're still doing space work, we're still doing all the object type stuff, the stuff that you would normally do in any given improv scene naturally anyway. But there's not that sort of pressing bit going, say a thing, like turn it into talking heads, like just live in that tiny little world that's been created with.
And also the audience, they just need a little bit of time just to take it all in, because this is a place that they haven't seen before. Yeah. This is that's beautiful. And I really like the idea of the overhead projection, because I love tech shows, tech improv shows. And I also sort of hate them when I do them, because there's always a disaster about half an hour before showtime, and it's always a different disaster, and I've got bags full of so many cables I don't know what to do with. Yeah. And then you just get it all going. It's like, now I'm reminded why I do this, because it is. It's that taking you somewhere different that you won't necessarily normally go.
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky in that respect with the RH experience because we have Tom Bacon, who, if you're not aware, for listeners of the podcast who are not fully familiar, is essentially God. I love that man, genuinely, with all my heart. And he makes us look amazing every show.
Yeah.
So he's an incredible technical improviser. Like he is, his edits are superb. So obviously he's blacking stuff out like instantly. And he's one of the sort of people where his sense of humour is so close to ours that we've nearly killed him a few times. It's not actually funny because I think we nearly have. And so I remember having him on lights, on sounds, to be able to rock up and go, cool, I want to do this weird thing. And he's got that yes and mindset, but and the technical knowledge to be able to make that stuff happen. So he is the fifth member. Like, even though he's not on stage, he is on stage. Like, he is. And the number of laughs he gets per show are easily, obviously that's not what we're going for, but I think for sheer fun, like he knows when to cut it, he knows when to shut us up, he knows when to give us more time, he knows when there's a game and goes, cool, you can play that more later, guys, it's all good. So he's a nice, he shepherds us in a really lovely way, and is so playful with it as well. So we're very lucky in that respect, and that we don't have to think about that, because Tom Bacon's got it all under control. And he's such a lovely positive influence in the team as well, so we just all love hanging out together. He's the one.
Brilliant. You mentioned Edinburgh.
Yes,
you have a show.
Yeah, this is new. So about 18 months ago, I decided that I'd write more stand-up. So I remember doing stuff with the Rasputins back in the day, and kind of go, well, I liked that. That was fun. And I've through doing stuff with the RH, through doing stuff with various improv groups, you obviously generate loads of ideas, and they're very sort of ephemeral. They go away, they sort of float into the ether, and you never see them again. And I always thought that's quite a shame. And I remember doing when the Second City guys first came over, so the guys from Toronto, so it was Kevin Frank, Lisa Marchant, who was amazing. They came over and they were doing not only the sort of regular improv stuff, but they were doing improv to sketch, which is how obviously the Second City turn their improv sort of late night free shows into their reviews. So they turn all these lovely sketches into that one's good, that one's good, that one's good. It's going into the review, and people will come and pay to see those slightly earlier shows on in the night in New York, wherever they happen to be. And I remember seeing like that kind of thing for the first time. I was thinking, oh, of course you can devise material from improvisation as long as you're recording it in some fashion. Yes. And I've heard people sort of either filming it, writing it down afterwards, going, that was a cool idea, let's do more with that. And the RH guys are great at that. So a lot of the sketches we've ended up filming or doing more with have been in the moment improv creations, and then they've been remembered, recorded, and turned into something cool at a later date.
I'm really interested in that process because I don't understand sketch.
I don't either, if I'm frank. As I say, for me, it's Connor and Tom who are the writing geniuses of the team, and they will take those ideas. I mean, in a similar way that you'll see a scene and you'll know it'll work, and you can see exactly why that works, or you can identify after the fact that, oh, that was the game maybe we should have played. Great, if you've got that recorded and go, right, well, let's do this again, but let's look at it from this game's perspective. Let's play that game for 5 beats and see how that goes. Or let's take this character from one scene and put him in this game instead, because I think that would be funnier. And so you've already got all the Lego bricks, if we can, sponsor this.
Yes,
if
Lego would like to sponsor this, that would be
amazing. You've got all the Lego bricks to build your cool improv or sketch or whatever house. Cool, so record them and make the most of it. And I remember kind of going, the other thing that I thought was, I think it's Sarah Millican had this lovely bit where after the end of a stand-up show, her rule is, if it went really well, she can brag about it for an hour. If it went really badly, she can wallow in it for an hour. Then after that time it's done, because that's it, that's all you can do. So I remember going, I love that for improv, but also, even if you can wallow or brag about it, whatever it is, it's still gone. I remember, I can't remember the last time I remembered an entire show of all the scenes that I did, because there's so much going on, there's so much you're holding in your head, like dropping. You don't have to keep it all in your head, you've just got to keep the salient points and make sure you're playing the games. That it doesn't matter in the show, because you're going to get where you are eventually. But it seems such a waste to me that there's so much material being generated all the time. Like, I should be writing this stuff down. Particularly with songs, so I started writing some stuff. I remember the first Edinburgh Fringe I went up with Do Not Adjust Your Stage and Music Box. So I remember doing some music for them, getting to play with people like Joe Samuel from the May Days, Phil Lunn, who's still one of my very favourite improvisers and musicians to play with as well. And we're going, cool, I love this improv stuff, but I need to write something. I need to get some stuff down. So I started writing stupid songs and taking them out on the regular London open mic comedy circuit.
Wow.
And had a lot of fun with it. Like, it's a very different scene than the improv scene. It's quite solitary. I found that a little bit tricky as well, because obviously when you're rolling up to an improv night and you've got your whole team in tow, it's like, great, you've got someone to talk with, someone to drink with, people to warm up with, people to laugh with, people to like cry with and go, nah, it's fine if it goes wrong. Whereas when you're going up and you're doing solo stand-up comedy, it's very lonely. And the improviser in me went, okay, I'm going to go and make as many friends as I can. It's like, some people don't want to be made friends with, some people do, and so I've met a lot of really lovely people on the scene, and just went, how can I fuse the things that I like, music, comedy and improv, in a way that is maybe a bit more club friendly, so I can go out and do more bits. So my debut solo show that I'm taking up to Edinburgh this year, and it's maybe 70% pre-written stuff with 30% improv, because I didn't want to lose improv entirely, because that is where it's all come from essentially, and I love working with a crowd, doing the fun chats and getting material out of the crowd and turning it into something on stage for them that only they're ever going to be able to see.
Right. Yes. That's
So the show this is called Google Drive. I'm doing my first previews at the Brighton Fringe in about a week and a half.
Wow.
And it's very tech heavy, so I've got lots of things that could go wrong, but luckily I've got Tom Bacon again, so that's quite nice. So
that would be the secret.
He is the secret sauce.
That is unfortunate for everybody who doesn't have Tom Bacon.
Well, quite. I mean, there are other excellent sets. I mean, for me as well, like John Monkhouse, the Funk House. Like, what a complete don. Like, I've seen him tech like massive, like, he obviously, like with Ostentatious, like I think he's tour manager for Ostentatious at the moment, obviously taking them around the place, and like so many multi-talented, like it's not even triple threat, it's like pentuple threats. Like, I can do everything, guys. And like, cool. I mean, thanks to the community for those cool people. But yeah, so it's an interesting. It's one of those sort of follow the fear kind of things. I didn't know whether I could do it. I'm not sure whether I wanted to do it, and so that made me go, no, I have to do it now.
Oh no!
But I'm excited. All the little previews and bits I've been doing so far have gone really well, and so it will be my first putting together of the hour, which is both terrifying and exhilarating, and hopefully rewarding at the same time. So looking forward to that immensely.
I mean, when you've been, turning up with your guitar at open spots and things like that, what's been the reaction if you've got a guitar? Are people happy to see you with a guitar, or?
Well, musical comedy has got a sort of mixed reputation, I think. It's similar to improv in a lot of respects, is that some people have seen really bad improv and so assume, rightly or wrongly, that all improv is like that. Similar with musical comedy, you see a lot of people who either can't play their instruments, don't have very many jokes, or it's a combination of both. And I remember doing my first, funnily enough, I'm not really a big fan of a lot of musical comedy, because I think it's an excuse for bad guitar playing and bad jokes put together to be something that's maybe okay. And but you see it done well, and I remember being like blown away the first time I saw Bill Bailey, David O'Doherty, Tim Minchin, like these like proper gods of musical comedy, and going, yes, it's clever, it's insightful, they have real musical skill. Like, I want to do something like that. And I think it's that in fact I saw a post from Maria Peters not so long ago, who is one of my other complete favourite musical and other improviser. She's incredible. She posted something about it's the Ira Glass quote of your taste and what you're currently trying to achieve, what you're trying to build. There is going to be a disparity there when you first start anyway. Your taste is killer, but what you're putting out there is maybe not as good as the thing that you're looking at. So I remember putting out terrible songs, like trying to sort of emulate a Bill Bailey song or trying to get that sort of vibe across. But the more you do it, the more you get better at it. Yeah. So rocking up to a show as a guitarist, you get those kind of things going, well, oh, he's got the applause stick. So that's the other thing, is that it's I've been to a couple of gigs where it's been seen as a gimmick. So if I'm doing musical comedy, I finish a song, I automatically get applause. And right. I think there's some comics who go, well, I have to work for my applause. And you're like, I don't care. I still really enjoy, I enjoy it. It's how I like to tell my jokes. It helps my memory as well. Like I've got a terrible sort of short and long-term memory, but for songs, absolutely not. I can remember lyrics for days. So being able to write my own things, they're their own memory aid in a way, which I quite like. At the same time, though, I've now seen like some incredible musical comics on the London scene. Did a gig recently with Harriet Brain, who's one of my very favourites, also a guitarist, and she's fused this beautiful fusion of musical comedy and an art appreciation. And she puts out the most amazing, thoughtful and hilarious material, and it's that sort of thing where I look at her and go, yes, that's that beautiful mix of it's genuinely funny, really insightful, and she's a great guitar player. And it's like, that's exactly the sort of thing I want to be watching. And then you see people like Rachel Parris, who, again, an incredible improviser. And one of my favourite things that I did, was it last year? Yeah, it must have been. Was upstairs, it was Lady Improv night. So the wonderful guys over there. And I remember I did a spot. The rest of the RH Experience couldn't make it, so I was all of the RH Experience for that night, and Rachel Parris was headlining. And one of the most beautiful and generous things I've ever been asked was, Dan, do you mind coming on at the end of my set and we'll do some duets together? And I lost my mind. It was the most fun with someone, again, who is an incredibly technical musical person, who's an incredible improviser, incredible musician, and very generous. It's that lovely sort of combination of things. So I remember thinking, well, I don't really mind what a lot of the regular stand-ups think about it. It's those lovely moments that I go, well, that makes it worth it. So yeah, similar to improv in that there's maybe a bit of a vibe around it. But then you see people like Ed Chappell, who runs the Musical Comedy Awards. And you see the passion around musical comedy. Like, they filled out the lyric this competition just gone, full of musical comedy fans. Every single heat, quarterfinal, semi-final, absolutely rammed to the rafters at the Phoenix near Oxford Circus. There's a real appetite for musical comedy, and I think, if it's nice that there's a niche. Some other comics may not understand it, but everyone's got different tastes, and who are they and who am I to judge?
And just because you're doing musical comedy doesn't mean that stand-up comedy is going to be negated or not exist anymore. It's
not a zero-sum game, I think. Exactly. Just because you're doing stand-up doesn't mean that you can't do music. Just because you're doing character doesn't mean you can't do sketch. It's not. No one's taking that thing away from you. I think that's the big difference between improv and stand-up. I don't think one is better than the other. What I have noticed particularly around the improv community, is I think it's a lot more giving. I think it's a lot more generous. I think there's a lot more trying to understand and trying to listen and trying to forward the art form and the scene as a whole, whereas I think there's maybe a little more of a sort of individual success marker. There's an individual, this is how we do things on our own, this is how there's less collaboration. I'm not saying there's no collaboration, because of course there is. But there's definitely less collaboration in the stand-up world that I've seen than there is in the improv world. And I think that's a shame, because I think you could end up with incredible writing partnerships, writing teams to do really cool stuff. I think maybe that's what's going on in the US at the moment that maybe isn't happening here. There's more of an understanding that as a team we can achieve more. Which is together everyone achieves more team. That's awful.
It's so true. It's so true. That's what I love about improv. It's the coming together with other people, and then it's the creating the shared universe that is so much richer because it's shared and we're all contributing to it. So
I'm also fully aware that I've kind of gone, the stand-up community is quite sort of closed and whatever, so if I get no gigs now, it's cool, totally worth it, guys. Come on, guys, work together. We can be putting good stuff out there as a team. And having said that, going up to Edinburgh as well, what I've noticed this year, so many cool people going up to Edinburgh. So Maria Peters, to bring her back in, is taking her first solo show up this year. Science of Cringe, which I'm so excited to see. We're both on at the Underbelly this year, so I'm delighted to see like people that she's amazing.
She is.
And seeing
I've seen the show, it's very good.
Have you? No, I've not seen it yet, so I know she was doing some previews.
Yes.
So yes, I'm very excited to see it. And seeing so many people go up who have had now some kind of improv background, even though they are doing mainly sort of stand-up stuff. So seeing people like Eleanor Conway is one of my favourites. So she's got a show called Walk of Shame. She's doing incredible things right now, like touring all around the country. I met her doing Second City workshops. So she already had that very engaging, really audience-focused kind of vibe about her anyway. The storytelling is magical. And then she's got the whole improv stuff to fall back on. She didn't need it because she's got incredible material as well, but having those people now with the improv mindset as well as that I want to generate material, I think it's getting to the stage where you are going to need both. I'm not sure how long the sort of regular person and microphone with no interaction is going to go. I think there's definitely a changing in the wind at the moment. Yeah. Not a fart joke, but yeah. I was doing a rehearsal yesterday, and it was a song about changing in the wind, and at the end of it was like, is this a fart? No, it's not a fart joke. Let's just leave it. But that was in my head, and that's why that came up.
So you mentioned in Google Drive that it's quite tech heavy.
Yeah.
Can you describe one of the tech heavy things that you're going to do?
Yeah, so guitaring wise, I've got an electric guitar with a MIDI synthesizer attached to it. So it makes my guitar sound like anything I want it to, anything I can program a synthesizer to. That itself is then fed into a loop pedal, which also has a microphone. So I'm beatboxing, looping, synthesizing guitar. That happens, so Tom has to deal with that. So thanks, Tom. And then I've got projections and stuff like that as well. So it was a lot more technically. I've had to scale it down. I had like apps that I was halfway through building to get audience interacting with things. I had signals being sent to the projection from guitars where different notes. It was like, nah, do you know what? Like, I need to get this done. Stop thinking of the cool tech stuff you can do and just get it done. So I've scaled it down a little bit. So it's more tech than I imagine you would have in a regular sort of one-person stand-up show. Yes. But it's enough that it's the sort of setup that I'm quite comfortable with. And then there's the tech layer of the actual show content as well. So it's all about predicting the apocalypse using Google search data, which, because in my regular normal person job that we were talking about at the beginning, I'm a software engineer. So having those kind of things sort of constantly filtering, again, it's trying to find that Venn diagram of here are all my interests, where's the bit in the middle where all of them can come together. So it's like the most me thing I can possibly make. So there's a fair bit of mainly audio tech that's going in, but there's a bit of visual stuff as well. And then Tom on lights it's Tom on lights, so it's going to be lovely. He's very able to be proactive and reactive into what's going on. He's an improv technical god, so I'm excited about that.
Cool, that sounds amazing. You're involved with a musical?
Yeah, so that's one of the. So that was another thing that I got in through, in a weird way, sort of by proxy, the RH Experience. So with the RH Experience, we were doing a radio show at the Roundhouse in Camden, which is really lovely. So for, I think it was a couple of years, we did a weekly show which we called Played Up. We had Tom Bacon was our host. He's got such a lovely, warm voice, and obviously his technical know-how. We get guests to come in, and it was a little bit of a mix of Desert Island Discs and more of an improv show. So the idea is that people would bring in lost tapes from their childhood or their attic. We put them in the tape recorder, and then the RH Experience would basically act out either the radio play or the songs that would be generated or whatever, which is really lovely. And through that process, we met a guy called Dave Cribb, who has done loads of stuff with Radio 1, Radio X, incredible producer, all-round good egg. And so I've done bits and pieces with him. He plays guitar in a Bandaman as well, so I've done some bits with Rob Broderick and a Bandaman too, playing guitar and we're going around with them. But Dave essentially went, we need a guitarist for this show that we're cooking up. Do you want to come down and have a play? So I was like, yes. And the concept is great. It's comedians a lot of household names as well, which is lovely, coming to sing their favourite songs from musicals with their live band. So
Wow.
I'm part of Dave and the Quavers, so it's Dave Cribb's band. I'm a Quaver in this scenario. It's hosted by Kiri McLean from Gaines Family Gift Shop, who are an incredible sketch group, and Jade Adams, who was, I think she was nominated for Edinburgh Best Newcomer last year, and as a duo hosting the show, they're incredible, lovely one, like so funny, and it's been doing incredibly well. And so we've had people like Sarah Pascoe, Ashlyn B, Joel Dommett came on last time and did Guns and Ships from Hamilton. So yeah, it's nice because although it's not sort of improvising really, we have practically no time to learn all the songs. So everyone gets to do one song, and then we have to. So there's a song that the hosts do. We then do a song for everyone, and then whoever wins, they get to do an encore song with the band, which is super lovely. However, it means that as the band, we're learning 12 songs per show, of which we use maybe 6 or 7. Ooh. So, and a very short time scale, because a lot of the time we don't really know who's coming on to do the show until maybe a little bit later. We have people drop out with people replacing them, so we have to drop out and replace the songs. So just being able to go, we know the key, we know roughly what, and Dave Cribb is amazing at this, like he's an incredible pianist, and the whole band as well. We've got a guy called Scott on drums who's incredible, a guy called Tim on other keys as well, so we've got multiple keys. And so, yeah, we have this sort of almost improv mindset between us that we have to react to what Kiri and Jade are doing, we're reacting to what the comedians are doing, because even though they're trying to do a sort of straight performance of these particular musicals, inevitably it's funny, inevitably we have to react to what's going on with the crowd. So there's a lovely sort of improvised, in the moment element about it too, which I really like. But it's a one-off. So we're doing this at the Bethnal Green. It's the Backyard Comedy Club in Bethnal Green. So we're doing that. The next one is, I think it's July 23rd? No, June 20th. I can't remember. I will let you know. But yes, and so, yeah, that's been really lovely. And then we're taking it up to the Pleasance Grand for a one-night only show in Edinburgh, which we'll have. We've already got some incredible acts booked in that I'm not allowed to talk about, sadly, but also the band is expanding. So we've got the Quavers, which are the 4 of us. I think we're looking at brass and strings and things like that to make it a proper sort of West End, Broadway type vibe. But very exciting and a big venue, which I think will hopefully do really well.
That sounds amazing. Cool. You also do coaching and corporate speaking.
Yeah.
Because I have used improv in a business sense today.
Yep.
I was filling out a job application form.
Yep.
Sorry, current employers, if you're listening. And they had that criteria bit, and one of the criteria bits was that I had to be friendly.
Okay.
And I slightly struggled how to explain how I was friendly in a kind of an application form.
Yeah.
And I used improv. I said it. I sort of hate myself for it. That I explained what yes and was.
Okay.
I said how I used that in a business setting as well as in a stage setting.
That's really lovely, and that's one of the things that I've been looking at for a while. So earlier in my software career, I was working at Microsoft, which was a lovely place to work. I was always the dumbest person in the room. I think in my team that I went into first, everyone else was like a PhD in computer science, and I've got a BA in foreign languages. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. I had a lot of fun. And my boss at the time, a really great guy called Paul Hammond, was trying to basically go, well, again, he was saying, well, what are your Venn diagram? Like, what are the things that you're into? How can you make the team better? How can you help the rest of your team using things that you have outside? And he introduced me to this book by a guy called Patrick Lencioni. So he's a motivational speaker, a really great business writer, and he's got a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which sounds incredibly dry, but it's really interesting. There's also a manga version, if that's your jam. Certainly is mine, so I got that copy, and it's essentially about a fictional company, and it's the management team of that company, and they've gone through a restructure and various things, and they identify 5 behaviours in this team that basically will make it fail. It's things like lack of trust, lack of conflict that is useful, inattention to detail, focus on ego, and so the whole model is really lovely, but I found it quite negative. So I remember reading this book and you go, you should read this and we had some problems in the team at the time, and I remember going, okay, there's something we can do here. And there's this lovely model of this pyramid, but it seems very negative. It's like lack of this, focus on a bad thing. I kind of went, well, if you flip it around the other way, they're functions and they're really nice, and they're an awful lot like the tenets of improv, very much like a real grounding in like complete what's the word I'm looking for? So it's a complete basis of trust, unconditional support, upon which you are listening to people the entire time, massive active listening, so that you can build on each other's ideas and take it away from yourself, making other people look good, which means that you end up putting together something that is greater than the sum of its parts. And I felt it was a more positive way of looking at that problem than, rather than the dysfunctions, I wanted to look at functions. So I spent a lot of time with Paul workshopping this workshop that we ended up doing at Microsoft and Skype, to get people to be a little bit more collaborative, maybe listen a little bit more, trying to focus on making other people look good. There was a big shift while I was at Microsoft from this sort of stand-up mentality to an improv mentality where it's all about your individual performance to more of a team performance. And so I remember going, that's really interesting. And so I started going with Paul to some sort of big, more grander conferences, I guess. So I got invited out to Shanghai, went out to there to do some stuff with the Scrum Alliance. So in software engineering, there's a big push around being able to respond to change, being able to adapt to change, being able to do that in a way that engages your customers, and so that you can put out the best product, be that software or whatever, that you can in a short space of time. Like, this is improv. Like, agile and improv are so similar. So I've done a lot of things there, and it's been able to. It's kind of changed the way I see, again, my working practices, and that, you know, I'm building software. I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing the best thing, but that I'm also engaging in my team in the best way possible to get the best out of them as well. So yeah, and it's opened a lot of really lovely doors. So going out to Shanghai, I've done some stuff with eBay, which has been lovely. Last year, we're out to Atlanta. So hearing actually Molly Merwin talk about her Atlanta journey, I remember going out there, and again, the improv community rallying around. I remember sending out a tweet saying, hey, does anyone know anyone in the improv or stand-up community in Atlanta? I'm going out there for a week for a conference. Is anyone around? And Mark Tyndall, was it episode 4? Mark Tyndall? Yeah. He came back and said, oh, you need to meet J-Star from the Basement Theatre out in Atlanta. Got this lovely message from J-Star saying, not only should you come and perform, please come and stay with me. Oh, that's beautiful. So again, it's that yes and, it's that acceptance. It's like generosity, and so I had the best time meeting some really lovely people. I think I did 5 or 6 shows while I was out there, which was really, really lovely, and then got to do some improv with businesses. And I've seen teams go from quite dysfunctional, lack of trust, to people like talking and having constructive conflict, having those difficult conversations, because there is a grounding of, we are listening, we're playing to the top of our intelligence, we're making other people look good, and ultimately we trust each other and support each other. And I think those are things, regardless of what kind of team you're in, whether it's a business team or whether it's an improv group, like whatever it is, like there are lessons that you can transfer. So I've really enjoyed that over the past. I'm running a session again with Paul, so it's nice to still keep in touch with old Microsoft pals. He's now over at eBay, which is lovely. So yeah, we're doing it's Code Slinger, it's called, in beginning of June, so it's the 7th of June, and we're running a workshop in London for I think there's loads of people from like Twitter and Facebook and people like that, so it's a nice sort of technical community kind of thing. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the corporate side of things and working with the businesses, and then coaching. I've a lot of really lovely both fledgling and established improv groups. So I've been working recently with Troopless, so Julia Mittelman's group, who I adore. They're amazing. Doing some sort of freestyle and sort of musical comedy work with them.
So how did you approach coaching them? Did they say, we want to work on this, or did you watch them and say, you should do this, isn't it?
So Julia, in fact, came to me and said, we'd like to do more musical stuff. We'd like to be able to freestyle. I think so. Julia, I think, had seen me do stuff with the RH Experience and said, oh, we'd like to do. We don't want to do exactly the same thing, but we'd like the skills to be able to. If we're in things like, I know Story Kitchen, I know the theatre sports type vibe. I know they get thrown into the best song, and so I'm like, cool, like to give you some tools to be able to handle that if that kind of thing comes up. And it's it's very much, it's the tools in the arsenal. You may not need them. It may not be the sort of improv that you're into or want to do, which is entirely fair enough. It's not for everyone. But having those tools in the arsenal anyway is really nice. And in fact, I did a workshop with, have you heard of the Shitface Shakespeare crew?
Yes.
Who are lovely. So they've got a new show coming out called Shitface Showtime, where they do a musical. And obviously one of the people in the cast, so they've learned a musical. They're doing The Wizard of Oz this year, which is fantastic. Seeing them rehearse, they're doing Brighton next weekend, and they look amazing. They're really, really great. And one of them is going to ruin it by being drunk. And so I got called in to basically go, hey, so this is going to happen. There's going to be disruption. Things are going to go wrong. How can we, in a musical capacity, improvise around things that you don't necessarily know how to deal with or you haven't rehearsed for? So it's nice to have those tools if you can use them, if you need them. Even if you never have to fall back on them, it's a nice sort of thing that you can pull out of your back pocket. And
yeah, it's nice to know that, you can bust out a rap if you need to.
well, that's it. Like, that's the thing.
And there's so few opportunities in my life where that's A, appropriate, or B, desirable.
I've started to realise that. I mean, I've been spoiled. Like, been working with Rob Broderick of Abandoned Man for a couple of years now. He is a wizard. He works incredibly hard, and he's an incredibly good freestyler. And so I've got more cause than most to have to bust out a rap, or at least like a hook for a great improv track. But working with him has made me go, do you know what? I love the music. I love the density of lyrics you can get. I remember, again, Duncan Walsh-Atkins talking about keeping things nice and simple, and you don't have to get all of the lyrics in the world into a song, unless you're doing like Gilbert and Sullivan or whatever it is. But I remember going, well, that's cool. Like, my job is to do a lot of the hooks. I do a lot of the sort of the Beastie Boys hype rhyming, where I'm rhyming at the same time as Rob during the show. And I keep my hooks super simple. I keep unless I'm like 99% sure of what the rhyme is, I don't do it. But then seeing the density of his lyrics and his internal rhyme schemes that are all off the cuff and ridiculously clever, and it's always incredible punchlines. Like, I have to learn from this man. Like, he's a wizard. So being exposed to that for about 2.5 years now, and to be around that kind of creativity, and yeah, I mean, it's inspirational. So you kind of I've made excuses to get more hip hop into my life because of that kind of influence. Like, if you've got it, like, make it more of a thing if you enjoy it. So yeah, don't hold yourself back. You've got to get it in if you can.
Talking of wizards,
yes.
Tell me about your love of Dungeons and Dragons.
So one of the things I did actually at university before I started improv, I've always been a bit of a nerd in the more traditional sense. Like, people can be nerds about lots of things. You've been an improv nerd or whatever. I was very much into computer games. I liked maths. I liked programming from a very young age. I had a ZX Spectrum, ZX81 that I programmed in BASIC on back in the day.
If you had a Commodore 64, I don't know if I could have carried
We'd
on.
have had to fight.
It would have been too soon to have mentioned it.
We've all been there. The number of Commodore 64 owners I've killed.
There'll be a VIC-20 owner in the middle, and they'll be like, don't fight.
It's okay. So you don't know what he's done. So yeah, I mean, so always was that kind of vibe. And then when I went to university, I went, college had an event where it was a fancy dress, heroes and villains kind of ball, if you like, it's in air quotes. And I went as Legolas from Lord of the Rings, and I made all of the costume bits myself. I made all of the tunic, and I made a bow and arrow out of like twine and some like bamboo I got in a shop, and I got a blonde hairband from Claire's Accessories. I looked ridiculous, but I really enjoyed myself. And someone at the party came up to me and said, "Are you part of the like medieval reenactment society?" And there wasn't a medieval reenactment society in Durham, but there was a live action role play society, which I kind of went along to as a bit of like, if I don't like it, if I think it's a bit weird, I'll give it up. And just got hooked. I had such a good time. So in every sphere, in every kind of thing that you might do for leisure, you get a lot of really people who are really hardcore about it, and you get some people who are a little bit more fringe and sort of just enjoy it for whatever. And fortunately, maybe unfortunately, I don't know, I fell in with a really great crowd of people who were into light drinking, sword fighting, and just generally having a good time. And so that's where I started doing improvised songs, weirdly enough. I used to take my guitar along. I started making up songs in character for like the people I was hanging around with. So we'd drink, we'd fight, we'd do songs around the campfire, we'd go out and whatever. And so from sort of a video game kind of background as a kid, I fell into this that was real life, and then fell in with a load of gamers, and that was Dungeons and Dragons, it was Pathfinder, 7th Sea, just having really good times with role playing. And what I realised was that when I got into improv, a lot of the skills and things that I'd learned from both, they started sort of flowing both ways. So I was a better role player because I'd done improv, and I was a better improviser because I was quite happy being in character for an entire weekend and loving it. So and I've noticed more recently as well, I've seen sort of Facebook posts of various folks who are either trying LARP for the first time or have been LARPers for a while. I think it's the Beta Males, who a sketch group, incredible. I think a lot of them, John Henry, I think Guy Kelly as well. Don't know them particularly well, but I've seen various LARP posts from them and going, oh, cool, like, okay, there are other people, that improv sort of D&D role-playing crossover is there. Sadly, I don't do it as much as I used to. I've still got like swords in my cupboard. Sadly, I've sold a lot of the kit. I've just not got enough time, so I've been more focused on the improv stuff. But the people that I met are all super lovely, super intelligent. Again, very generous. There's a sort of collaborative, building a story vibe that you get with whatever kind of creative storytelling you're doing, be that improv, be that D&D. And funnily enough, like seeing more and more comedians do it. Like I know Paul Foxcroft, for instance, one of my very favourite improvisers, along with Cariad Lloyd doing Paul and Cariad and Paul. He's got his show Questing Time, which is again at the Phoenix, down below in their basement. Really lovely comedians playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it's yes. This is the sort of thing where if I'd have known that this was a thing as a kid that I could get involved in, because like knowing that LARPing was a thing, live action role play was a thing as a kid, would have blown my mind that this is a thing that like people can do and do as a hobby. Like that would have blown my mind and made school probably a lot easier, because like I went to school where, God bless them, like they were not nerd friendly at all. I had two friends who got what Final Fantasy was, one of my favourite role-playing games from the Japanese role-playing game. Actually incredible. Seven was my intro, as it was many people, PlayStation 1. But yeah, I remember like then from there going, well, how do I find this? And I remember going, I was sort of, I think probably one of the last generations where I grew up without the internet. I think it was 15, 16 when we first got a dial-up modem in our house. And then I remember going, oh, I can get all my cheats for my games if I wanted to do that. I could like talk to my friends on MSN Messenger. I remember playing Dungeon Keeper over like really shoddy internet connection and going, why is it not working? And those games like Age of Empires 2, which I adored, but it took, I wish I'd had that from 9 years old when I was first into that kind of stuff, and going, no, there are other people out there like me. There are other people who enjoy that kind of stuff, and obviously, like gaming is quite a maybe frivolous thing to want a community for.
It's all community.
It's all community. But yeah, that was it. So it all kind of links together in that I still play a bit of D&D now and again. I was invited to a lovely banquet event recently where I was hired to play a one-off character for the event, where I essentially went round and made fun of everyone in character as a bard so I got given a load of information up front to then riff off, and so I wrote a couple of rhymes on the train on the way there, but then interact in character, write some songs, be part of the world, and it just felt very, very improvised and very natural. So I recommend any crossover with that kind of stuff if you're into improv. I know people like Katie Shute, for instance. I know she's a big D&D player as well. All of that kind of cool. I think Chris Mead and all those folks too. So yeah, it's a thing that I'm very keen on. Don't do enough of, sadly, with all of the gigging and stuff and like regular person work as well.
It's hard to fit it all in. And yet you seem to do better at that than most.
I mean, my sleep pattern is screwed, but it is what it is. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way, as I said before. So,
Right, the last big question. The big question. What is your signature move?
Oh, I heard you ask Molly this, and I thought, what is my signature move?
Because as soon as you've told us, you're going to have to stop doing it. Because everyone's going to realise what it is. They're going to go, signature move. So I'm helping you develop as an improviser.
I think it is. I do a nerd character that I really like, and I push the glasses up on my nose, and I sort of hunch a little bit. It's a physicality that I get into, and my voice kind of goes like this, and I have inevitably some kind of clipboard or something, and sort of quite doddery, and I will come on and I will just add something that's already there. If I don't have anything, that's my initiation. I'm like, well, it looks like the files are out of order, Jeremy, or something like that. It's so like admin focused because that's immediately where my mind goes. It's like, well, what else can I do in this scene? Well, you know what? I love admin and rules. Let's do that. So when I'm properly in a rut and properly in my head, it will be physical. It will be a little bit of a parody of myself, I think, going, that idiot. And yeah, just have a little bit of fun with it. But then the second anyone then comes on, it's usually will morph out of it. But if you see me do the pushing up glasses nerd thing, that's me going, I'm totally in my head and I need to get out of this.
Nice. And also, we can all use that persona as well.
Take it, like, please, stop me doing that, because the number of times, it's almost embarrassing now.
I made this.
That's improv!